Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Lasham Daily Briefing for Wednesday, the 13th of August, 2025. We'll start, as always, with the general synoptic picture. Beginning yesterday at lunchtime, you can see there's very little on the chart there, led to a very pleasant, if very warm day. Blue almost all of the day as well, but there were some reasonable flights, both local and cross-country. Overnight, not a great deal of change to the picture. We've got that low centre just off to the southwest or south-southwestern tip of Ireland. And there's a couple of frontal features associated with that, namely that weak cold front to the south coast. By midday today, that low has moved over to the centre of Ireland, and that weak cold front getting ever closer, although I suspect by the time it gets here, it won't have amounted to very much. Otherwise, in our area, clear, fairly slack isobars, albeit a reasonable amount of wind in places today, and albeit the low pressure dominating it is going to be fairly typical blue high pressure conditions, depending on what this cloud that we're seeing outside the window now does in the end. Into midnight and again tomorrow, expecting fairly high temperatures tomorrow as the high pressure becomes dominant again from the southwest. And we've got this red line here indicating possible heat wave. And again, no significant weather, so expecting blue and hot as well tomorrow. Outlook for the remainder of the week, it's all very much the same. And we're stuck with the same as until probably early next week. Back to today, however, on the sat pics here, you can see this big wedge of sort of medium and low level cloud to the south, just beginning to envelop us there. But look at what that's been doing for the last few hours. They run that through. You can see it is actually tracking inland from the south down towards where that warm front, correction, that weak cold front was. So the risk is that this cloud continues to work its way in. Thickening throughout the day. The lower level stuff we're seeing at the moment should theoretically burn off fairly quickly, but this does imply that there's going to be a fair amount of top cover for the rest of the day. Rain radar, a few isolated showers to the east and north, but nothing of significance. And if we look at the Met Office rain prediction, we run that through. You can see showers from the south, staying mostly, potentially one or two very small ones coming our way, but likely not a problem. And clear into the evening. The bulk of that precipitation going towards sort of Dover and London. So the Odium TAF, they're saying 2006 knots, 6,000 meter visibility, and mist broken at 400 feet, and that's from 8 o'clock until 7 o'clock this evening. That's becoming between 8 and 10, visibility greater than 10 kilometers with no significant weather, few at 1,000 feet, and prop 30 for mid to late morning of scattered at 1,400 feet. So definitely suggesting that this low level cloud and mist is going to break up. Farnborough, much the same, really, 1905 knots, so slightly more southerly. Visibility 3,500 meters with mist broken at 100 feet, becoming between the hours of 7 and 10. 10 kilometer visibility with no significant weather and few at 1,400. So both they're in agreement that it's going to be clearing within the next hour or two to have broken or few at 1,400 foot base. The spot winds to the south easterly at 5 knots, fairly light, and to the north of us showing, let's just refresh that. Got an old chart there. There we go, that's worked. So 230 and 220 to the south of us, 5 and 10 knots respectively. Seems a bit more sensible than the easterly that we saw before. And to the north from the south or south-southwest, around 5 knots at 1,000 and 2,000 feet. Windy, showing a southwesterly flow across the airfield. We will be operating runway 27 to begin with today, and that will be on review depending on what the strength and gusting elements appear to be. We will consider us change onto 23, but we'll remain on 27 if we can. The local Met Office forecast then showing fairly light wind again, southwesterly, it's 10 knot maximum, potentially gusting up towards 20. That may or may not be the case. We will see. Visibility fairly poor to begin with, despite saying good there, improving into the mid to late afternoon. Now, it suggests that from midday onwards, it's going to be blue, but as we'll have a look at some of the cloud models shortly. So, and based on the sat pic that we saw a few minutes ago, it's likely to have quite a lot of top cover today. If we move on now to GFS, they're showing temperatures for today, midday, up in the region of 27 to 29 degrees, which is not agreeing with what the Met Office was saying there, which is around 22 to 24. We'll see how that develops. I think that this model perhaps isn't taking into account that top cover. It's expecting a bit more surface heating. Dew point, also from the GFS, showing it's 14 today. And if we have a look, that was the webcam on the south side looking west at 5 to 9 this morning. If we just refresh that now, there's been no real change. Still fairly solid base. Starting to thin out in places potentially to the north. And we'll monitor that throughout the morning. Temperature, we're now up to 18.1 with a dew point of 15.6. So sky sight on the left-hand side of the screen here, there's an excerpt from the potential flight distance. You can see there's not a great deal to write home about, particularly immediately in our area. Perhaps to the north and northwest, there's a little bit more to be had, but locally, I can't imagine there's going to be a great deal of cross-country flying. However, there is potential up in this direction, so I'm sure one or two will have a go. The point forecast showing the low cloud to begin with there, clearing slightly earlier than in reality, but suggesting solid top cover for the remainder of the day with variable mid-level as well. And not a great deal of surface heating, sufficient for some local soaring, soarable up to a maximum of 2,500 feet above the airfield, with climbs ranging between 2.5 and 3.5 knots. Showing the thermal top winds there to be southwesterly between 15 and 22 knots throughout the day. Top meteor, you're looking at the cloud distribution for today. You can see this is as of 9 o'clock local, this low level, sub 1,000 foot and sub 500 foot cloud here, which we saw in the sat pic. They're taking up quite a lot of the southern part of England. We run this through hour by hour. You see mid-morning, it's clearing, becoming just sort of medium thickness cirrus. By lunchtime, midday, start to see the AutoQ coming in. But it should remain reasonable. No sign of cumulus, really, and persistent top cover, really, for much of the day and into the evening for some coastal fog potentially working its way back in as the night falls. No terms, not a great deal, particularly based on that forecast, but at 30 we've got Delta 132, the ash ranges. Over at 31, there is some paragliding taking place at Devizes, potentially. I'm not so sure about that today. And up at 34, as normal, is West Ilsley. They're going to be winch launching paragliders to 1,900 feet. We'll move on to the local element of the brief. Glider bookings to begin. We've got two K21s and a K13 on booked instruction, and there are two K21s on the 5-day courses. There's one K21 presently allocated to the casual list, but at the moment we only have four K21 serviceable. One's in annual and one is having a bit of maintenance that's run over, so that will potentially come back online later today, but I don't have any update on that at the moment. There's a K13 for trial lessons, and there's some afternoon bookings by club members on K13. So I think the day group are going to have to work out how they're going to allocate those K13s to make sure the casual list can do some flying. We have fairly limited single seat availability today, and when I last checked, there were five on the casual list with one instructor. The simulator is available as normal, and here's your reminder again about the Airborne expedition. I'll need to check exactly how many places there are left because I think we might be almost fully booked now. Any questions, come and see myself, Ron or Barry, and if you want to book, speak to the office. But no movements today. And in summary, it's a low pressure centered over Ireland with no significant weather. Low cloud to begin with, clearing mid-morning, and with possible top cover, in fact, likely top cover for the remainder of the day. And there's also a moderate southwesterly flow across the airfield. And with that in mind, we'll be operating runway 27 with cables on the south grass, and any requirement for a grid will be in its usual place, 27 north grass, although I highly doubt that today. Please make sure you're ready when the cable log tug arrives, and as always, do not land or taxi across the disused runways shown in red. That's our airfield setup to finish, with the winch on south side grass, serrating from the hard, and any grid on the north side grass is required. That is all from me today. We'll see you out there shortly. Have a good day and keep it safe. Thank you.